Okay, so you start with basically driving a truck for these mafia families and skimming the stuff out of the luggage. Does that start to get more serious and more crimes?
No, it didn't, and then my cousin started staying around John Jr., which is John Gotti Jr., and then brought me around them, and then that's how we kind of started staying around the Gambino family.
Okay, and did you know John Gotti Jr. personally?
Yes, yes, I did.
Okay, did you guys had a close relationship or just every so
No, I
often?
mean, we were friends and friendly, and we were around him, which would equate to associated to him.
Okay, and was John Sr. locked up by this time?
He was not. He was out.
Okay, so he was a Teflon Don at this
Correct.
point.
Correct.
Okay, so how did people really think, people who were associated with the mafia, what did they think of John Gotti Sr. being flashy and, on the cover of newspapers and calling himself being coined the Teflon Don, being untouchable in an organization that's supposed to be completely secretive?
Correct. There's two answers. There's an answer back at that time, and then from what I heard, recently, back at that time, I really never heard anything. No one spoke. Don't forget, he was out and about, and no one would really speak that way about him. Maybe behind closed doors or whispered, but not to us. We were younger guys and we were associates. Later on, they, obviously it wasn't a good thing. A lot of people have blamed him for ruining Cosa Nostra. I don't believe that to be the case as far as ruining it. I just think that he brought a lot of unnecessary attention to himself, and unfortunately everybody in that life. But as far as personally ruining it, I don't believe that to be so.
Okay, and then in 1990, you're 20 years old and you get convicted for a manslaughter.
Correct.
Tell me about that situation.
I really didn't want to talk about it, because of out of respect for the victim's family. I could just say that it had nothing to do with organized crime. A young man lost his life. There was obviously a very bad and tragic misunderstanding. And, I wind up going to trial on the case, charged with murder, and ultimately got convicted of manslaughter and, was sent to prison.
Okay, so how do you feel as a 20-year-old convicted of manslaughter? I mean, you ultimately did 17 years, but how many years were you sentenced to?
I was sentenced to 8 years and 4 months to 25 years. So that's a range of what, how much time you could do.
Okay, so you're being told that you might stay in prison longer than you've been alive.
Basically, Vlad, I was told that back then there was such a thing called work release, right? And kind of had the Democrats were in office at that time, and you were able. Matter of fact, it was Mario Cuomo back then, and you were able to, if you did your time and kind of your minimum, 2 years before your minimum, you were able to get a work release program. So I really was told, well, you probably do 6 and change, and you guys will get some work release. Never came to fruition. The Republicans came in, Governor Pataki, he did away with all of that. And I knew that we were, at least at a minimum, going to be staying for the whole 8 years and 4 months. I never expected to do the 17 years.
Okay, but you ended up doing 17 years.
Yes, I did.